Last month, I decided to sell my incredible Sony FX30 and all of the glass that I collected while owning it for the new Fujifilm X-M5, the 15 to 45mm kit lens, and 2 budget primes. The X-M5 and the kit lens together cost $899 compared to the $1,789 it cost to get just the body of the FX30. But this isn't a video to brag about arguably questionable financial decisions. This is a video to explore what someone really needs out of a camera for content creation, as someone who's been making videos on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok for the last 4 years and has used upwards of 10 cameras, if not more. This conversation is going to focus on the Sony FX30, which is the best camera I've ever owned by far, and also why it was so easy for me to commit to switching to the new Fujifilm X-M5, which is arguably a worse camera in terms of specs and performance. But to keep this video hopefully a little more simple, I'm going to break it down into 3 parts: why I invested so heavily into Sony in the first place, the impact that my camera has on my own content creation, and why I chose the Fujifilm X-M5. I started my first YouTube channel in 2020 in the skateboarding niche, and all I had was a Canon EOS M6, a very cheap Boya mic, and a very broken GoPro Hero 8. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, but I was excited, and I kind of dove just headfirst into the whole YouTube thing. And to my surprise, I ended up gaining a lot more traction than I thought I would. Not giant crazy numbers, but I was doing pretty well. And with that traction came an excitement to improve the videos. So I immersed myself in how-tos and gear reviews, and almost immediately found myself most attracted to Fujifilm and Lumix cameras. I don't really know what it was about them, something about the tactile design and just the incredible images that I was seeing from these cameras made me want to go in that direction, but 3 things stopped me. 1, most of my favorite YouTubers were using Sony cameras at the time. 2, I was genuinely afraid of missing out on some of the advanced Sony features, like the incredible autofocus, especially at a time when I didn't know how to use different autofocus modes, let alone manual focus a shot. And 3, the Sony ZV-1 had just come out, which was a pretty compelling all-in-one option for a decent price. So it was pretty easy to jump from my Canon EOS M6 over into Sony, thinking that I'd start with the Sony ZV-1 and grow in the ecosystem from there. And since then, for the most part, my main camera and the cameras that I've gotten to use from the people around me have been Sony's, except for about 6 months where my Sony ZV-1 suddenly died and I needed a camera really quick, and I was able to get my hands on the Nikon Z30, which was an incredible camera, by the way. I actually would recommend it and I really enjoyed using it myself. But that is one of the cameras that I sold in order to help me finance the Sony FX30, which promised to just be an absolute beast of a little camera for my niche in particular. I mean, 4K 120 for slow-mo tutorials, an internal fan for long shoots outside in direct sunlight, great low-light performance if I'm shooting on a cloudy day, lots of taily lights to let me know that I'm recording, dual card slots, great manual controls in the form of lots of buttons, gyro data for stable shots if I'm filming someone else, and quarter threads all over the body so that I wouldn't need a cage when I go out to shoot. It also came out right before I was scheduled to travel to Germany for a skate contest, so I went all in. I got the Sony FX30, the Sigma 18-50, and also the Sony 11mm, a collection to which I later added the Sigma 30 and 56mm primes. I also collected along the way a couple of cameras for niche shots, like the Insta360 X3 or the Insta360 Go 3. And over the years, I realized 2 major things about the impact a camera has on content creation. First of all, when your favorite YouTuber says that gear doesn't matter, there's a little bit of nuanced truth to that statement. All of my highest performing videos, the ones that have reached 190 or 70,000 plus views, were filmed mostly with this broken GoPro Hero 8 and the cheapest cameras I ever used, the Sony ZV-1 or that Canon EOS M6. None of them were filmed with my fancy Sony FX30. Even on TikTok, the best video I've ever made that reached 1 million views had, it was filmed on the Nikon. It was filmed on the Nikon Z30. And that is in part due to the kind of videos I made inside of my own niche. Now, I was filming mostly skate tutorials, and no one really cared that the video was either grainy, backlit, brightened up in post, and then zoomed in 200%, because they were watching the videos for the content. They wanted the information. And while that is a very specific example, I do feel that when it comes to content creation, there are a lot of niches out there where the story and information of your video far outweigh the cost of your camera and any fancy cinematography. And now that I'm a lot better at using a camera in general, I've also learned how to take the camera that I currently have and improve the footage without upgrading the hardware. I think I put a lot of pressure on myself early on to make the videos look better, and there was definitely a part of me that hoped if I invested in the best gear, if I bought the most expensive camera that I could afford, then it would also help make up for a bit of lack of skill. Like with the autofocus, I didn't want to miss focus, and I just figured that the best thing I could do was get the best autofocus camera to take care of that problem for me, when I really should have just learned how to use different focus modes, try to understand what typically confuses an autofocus motor. Is it a motor? Well, what typically confuses the autofocus? And also just learn how to manually focus my shots, because even the incredible autofocus of the Sony FX30 sometimes missed for me, which is just more evidence that what I really should have been trying to do is, instead of upgrade and improve my camera gear, I should have been upgrading and improving my own skills. The other thing that I learned is that cameras and the specs they hold, what they really just represent are potential shots. Possibilities, if you will. When I bought the Insta360 Go 3, I wasn't just sold on the small size, decent image quality, and handy magnet. I was sold on the potential shots that I could get with this little guy that just wouldn't be practical or even possible with another camera. The problem is that I didn't actually go out and take those shots. Even more soul-crushing is that when it came to the FX30 and all of the features that I bought it for, it turned out I didn't really use those features. I never took the time to shoot 4K 120. I never put anything into the 1/4 threads. I manually focused all of the shots that I absolutely couldn't miss, and when it came to that gyro data and the low light capabilities, I almost never used them, and when I did, I still managed to mess them up. Which means that all the potential of this camera and all the features that I used it for were underutilized and kind of unnecessary for how I ended up filming. But more than anything, I realized that the expensive price tag and the pretty big size of this camera gave me a lot of anxiety while shooting. I am more confident than I've ever been in my entire life to go out and make videos or take photos or just exist in public, but it is so hard to go out with this camera and shoot. One, because it's expensive and I don't want it to break or get ruined or drop it or get lost or taken from me. And also, it just is so big that it draws a lot of attention to itself. I was way more comfortable and confident shooting outside with my GoPro Hero 8 or my Sony ZV-1 and even the Nikon Z30, which isn't exactly tiny, than I am shooting outside with this. Which makes the bottom line here that cameras and their specs and their features only matter if you're actually utilizing them. I probably would have grown just as much and maybe even made more videos if I just stuck to my GoPro Hero 8 and that Nikon Z30. And that brings us to why the Fujifilm X-M5. I always kept my eyes on Fujifilm products. I even briefly owned the Fujifilm X-T20 with the 27mm pancake lens, which was incredibly fun to use, but unfortunately I did sell that to help finance the FX30. But when this X-M5 came out, I just knew in my gut that this was the time to make the switch. The FX30 offered me all of the specs, features, and functionality that a small creator could wish for, but now that I can use my cameras in manual modes and I can manually focus my shots, I know a lot more about exposure, settings, autofocus modes, and I've learned so much about myself, what I'm comfortable doing, what I'm uncomfortable doing, what makes it easier for me to shoot and what makes it more difficult for me to shoot. I just knew that the X-M5 had the entire package for me. Something that was small, compact, a little bit more affordable than something like this, so if anything did happen to the camera, I wouldn't be out $2,000 just for the body. But then also, it's incredibly powerful. It's so much more fun to shoot on than my phone. It creates incredible images. Even in the short time I've found it, I've been able to take it out with me. I took it to a little art gala, which was a lot of fun. Took some good photos, some night photography actually, and the photos just came out great. It was so much fun. Very quickly, I realized that like this was the camera that I wanted. That because for me right now, what I want more than anything is to create. I want to grow, I want to learn, I want to work really hard for my shots. I want to take the time just to make fun, maybe creative pieces. I want the tool that will give me the best quality for the size and feature set, the functionality that I will actually carry around with me everywhere. I don't think I could do that with this camera and this lens. Like, I'm not gonna just keep it on a neck strap and walk around with it. However, the X-M5, that I will. That I have no problem just throwing on a neck strap and just walking around a party, walking outside in the street, stopping to take photos whenever I want to. It really offers everything that I want for, to me, what's a great package. Like, it's not that this camera's better or the Sony FX30 is better. You're really trying to match the best tool to the right person, and I feel like that's what I've been able to do. I've also slowly but surely fallen deeply in love with photography, and I really want to improve my skills there, which the X-M5 is an incredible photography tool, whereas the Sony FX30 certainly is not. When I bought it, I didn't realize how much I would fall in love with photography over the next 2 years, but I did, and this is a great camera for that. It also has some specific features that really are only in this package. It does have 4K 60, which I need for filming skate content. The open gate is really, really important to me. Just the way that I create content, that would be an incredible improvement to my workflow. And then also the film simulations, because I do want to dive deep into photography. And the best part is that this camera offers everything that I need and nothing that I don't, which is why I truly feel like I've found the right tool for me. There's going to be plenty of things I probably don't like about it. I've already fixed a few things that I considered problems for myself personally, but there's nothing I don't think I can't get used to. And I also now have room to grow within the Fujifilm system, since I will be collecting a set of lenses for this camera. I actually don't have any plans to buy more lenses as of now. I have my 2 favorite focal lengths and primes, and I have the little kit lens, which I'm hoping is like my perfect kit. My perfect, simple, easy kit. I'm not a professional cinematographer or even a photographer. I'm a hobbyist and a creator, and I'm in this phase where I just truly want to push myself creatively and make stuff. I want to actually go out and make stuff instead of thinking about making stuff.